Story 1. I am chronically ill and bedbound with severe brain fog, which is diminished mental capacity. It is one of the few activities I can tolerate. Story 2. To witness humanity's finest moments of profound wisdom, such as the questions, why do cats dislike cucumbers? And, is cereal considered a soup? Story 3. Crippling depression where I can still vaguely interact with people without having to explain to any of my real-life friends why. Story 4. I have always enjoyed debating and exchanging ideas on message boards for as long as I can remember, and Reddit is, by far, the king of all message boards. Story 5. Because, in terms of racist individuals, they tend to gravitate more toward certain online forums. If I wanted to see someone go on a rant about white supremacy and violence, that is where I would go. Or to hear about how much harmful content they have accumulated over the last year. There is significantly less of that here. That is why I choose Reddit. Story 6. It is amazing how much information exists on Reddit, and some of it is actually correct. I have turned to Reddit to fact-check a news story, as there are individuals who do the deep dives that I do not have the time or patience for. Additionally, some of the comment sections explore fascinating tangents on their own. Story 7. More helpful than Google. I am trying to share my affiliate links in hopes of earning a little money. I know that I am not alone in what I am experiencing. Story 8. Boredom and curiosity. I enjoy writing and being helpful, so I answer many questions. Story 9. 1. Niche interests. 2. To escape toxic individuals or inflammatory content on Facebook. 3. Anonymity allows for less judgment. 4. This is a forum where ideas can be discussed in a more constructive manner, unlike the negativity often found on Facebook and other social media platforms. Story 10. It depends on the community. Sometimes I engage for fun, but I mostly ask questions, share opinions, or seek help. Story 11. I am a lonely little blue pixel in the field of deep red that is Arkansas. Here, I can be myself in a way I cannot on Facebook. Story 12. It is the fastest way to get people to talk about virtually any subject. It is like the social media version of a news board or a speakeasy. Story 13. When I use other social media sites, I have to sift through a lot of content that I don't care about before finding something I like. On Reddit, I simply click on the topic I am interested in and instantly see relevant content. Story 14. I can really relate to many of the topics I read about in my subscriptions. I am also drawn to the "Am I the Asshole?" community, even if half the time the content is not genuine. Story 15. It's like an adult fidget spinner that also provides you with news you may not read and some casual conversation. Story 16. Mainly, I want to be on r/The Walking Dead because it is my main fandom and has some of the most lovely people I have ever met. A secondary reason is to keep up with technology and hear people's thoughts on new electronic releases. I enjoy technology. Story 17. People watch to stay connected with my best friend. Happy Mother's Day to all moms out there on Sunday. Stay safe. Story 18. Because if I overwhelmed my friends and family with how much I want to talk about Final Fantasy V, they would leave me. Story 19. For the chaos, the surprisingly helpful advice, and the comments that know exactly what I'm into. Story 20. I originally created an account because it answered most of my questions when I looked them up. Story 21. I don't have any other social media. Some things are fun to look at and peruse. Other things I have learned I need to just mute the subreddit for. I haven't been on Reddit for very long. In my short time here, however, I personally feel that 80% of the posts about relationship advice or "Am I the Asshole?" are not genuine, just my personal opinion. Example: my boyfriend is also dating my sister. Am I overreacting? Seriously. Some days I think about deleting the app altogether because of how people behave and how adversarial they become over a simple statement or question. Story 22. I'm off Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and TikTok. This is really the only social media that doesn't feel unpleasant to me, and I can get my fix for scrolling. I'd like to quit Reddit too at some point. Honestly, going back to an early 2000s text and picture-only flip phone would be amazing. At some point, I would love to completely disconnect from all of this. Story 23. Gaming communities. By the way, moderators on Reddit's Sea of Thieves community are terrible. It is because they do not consistently enforce their rules. They ban and remove posts whenever they feel like it, while allowing posts that violate the rules to remain. Story 24. Mostly to pass the time, I enjoy reading people's stories in bed just before I fall asleep. Occasionally, I find answers to random yet specific questions. When I use my phone, I spend 90% of the time on Reddit. I actually prefer it here over Instagram or Facebook. Story 25. I was drawn in by clickbait list articles and realized the sources were all just old Ask threads. I decided to join and read the more current ones, as well as share my own experiences. I think I am funny and knowledgeable, and it seems that over 70,000 people here have somewhat agreed with me so far. Story 26. I don't have any other social media, so I am here relaxing. At least here, along with the distractions, I learn new things sometimes. Story 27. I love the writings. Some genuinely touch my heart to the point that I can feel the emotions the writer may have experienced at that time. I have been blessed with these intense emotions and deep feelings, yet I lack a creative outlet to express them. It would be therapeutic for me. Story 28. A community for specific niches and knowledge bases is far better than any other place I have ever been. Story 29. It used to be for adult content, but now it is a great source of information for a game since the community is active. Story 30. It is a place where, no matter how random my current hyperfixation is, I can find people with the same interest. Story 31. Because people talk and discuss like civilized adults along with numerous memes. And of course, there is adult content. Story 32. I used to enjoy the discussions, but people have become morally bankrupt. Now, I am only interested in adult content. Story 33. Because my real-life friends, the one or two I have, are in different phases of life and can't help me with anything. My Reddit friends are my lifesavers when it comes to adulting. Story 34. Because it was more real than Instagram, which sometimes made me feel a little down. Reddit is a combination of real news, intentionally funny fake news, opinions, wholesome content, and a bit of everything else. I love it. Story 35. I use Reddit for real, unfiltered opinions, niche communities, and staying updated on topics I care about all in one place. Story 36. Combining learning with the ability to discuss topics that interest me with people who understand is essential. It can feel isolating to realize that the few people left in your life do not understand what makes you happy. I can engage with relevant communities and interact with others in various ways, which gives me a sense of camaraderie, even if nobody knows me. Story 37. Aside from being the least problematic social media platform, it is the most conversational. Somehow, the negative aspects from Facebook haven't entirely spilled over to here with harsh comments. The atmosphere of Reddit is just quite relaxed. Story 38. Honestly, during the pandemic, many "Am I the asshole" posts would pop up on other social media platforms. Once I discovered they actually originated on Reddit, I joined that community and went down the rabbit hole. Since then, I've found several other interesting subreddits, and this has become my main social media platform. Story 39. Nobody I know likes the things I like, and they certainly do not want to listen to me talk about them. Story 40. Because Facebook is authoritarian and discriminates against certain groups of people. You can be placed in Facebook jail for posting a meme or what they label as fake news, which is often actual news they disapprove of. Story 41. I enjoy helping people, and Reddit is a good platform to answer questions that I may be knowledgeable about for others. Story 42. I want to discuss niche interests and engage in conversation. Currently, I am unemployed, so I cannot go out as much as I would like, and my group chats with friends are not always active enough during the day to satisfy that need. Story 43. Discussions are valuable here, and when it comes to advice on new hobbies, the best suggestions rise to the top. Low-effort comments tend to sink to the bottom, and I appreciate that. Story 44. It is much easier to read text threads discreetly while working. Scrolling through videos would be too obvious and distracting. I also enjoy cats. Story 45. When I am scrolling the internet at work, I might come across something interesting, and it is one of the few sites I can access. Story 46. I don't use any other social media. Unless you count YouTube, my channel is not active, and I sometimes just watch videos for background noise while gaming or cleaning. Story 47. Just to gain knowledge about several topics and increase recognition. I won't lie, you use it for the same reasons I know. Story 48. Stories from humanity. I saw a story on Imager called The Kevin Jenkins Experience. I came here for the rest of the story and haven't left yet. Story 49. It is the only social platform where I have learned many valuable things. Since I started using it, I have built savings, paid off my credit card debt, and gained a better understanding of the engineering field, the housing market, and joining the military. As an immigrant to the United States, I was initially unsure about life here, but I have acquired information on this app that others could not have provided. Story 50. The last few months, I noticed that many of my search queries were leading me to Reddit posts. I found the discussions to be helpful. Now, I sometimes search for whatever Reddit to specifically see what people on Reddit are saying about my query. Story 51. I usually learn something interesting at least once a day, even if I spend most of the time looking at things I have already seen. Story 52. Sometimes I prefer to consider people's disembodied thoughts rather than attribute a thought to a specific individual. Story 53. I enjoy chatting about everything and nothing with people I will probably never see or meet. Social media feels quite small sometimes. Plus, I can learn something new here or receive a book recommendation. Story 54. It is like a more interesting and varied social media platform. Instead of only seeing posts from people I know, I have access to a diverse range of individuals and their content, covering everything from world news to personal interests to advice, and even a little bit of adult content. Story 55. Shitposting subreddits are fun, and I enjoy the community in the Coffin of Andy and Lele subreddit. It is a great place to discuss that game. I also have an addiction to social media and being on my phone constantly, but we shouldn't discuss that further. Story 56. I use it because I believe I have some valuable insights to share during my time on this planet. I have taken care of my family and friends, so if I have learned something, I pass it on to others. That's essentially it, and I enjoy reading about other people's experiences. Reddit is great for a variety of topics. The written language has always been a way for us to learn from each other's experiences, and Reddit serves as an extension of that. If you conduct online searches, you'll find many results from Reddit. It's a treasure trove of information for people. Story 57. It is better than most other options, with fewer controversies and restrictions, and is easier to use. It is also a great way to discover enjoyable content that I like. Additionally, it serves as a decent search engine for art or questions, especially when I have exhausted other options or when the question pertains to players of a game. Story 58. I am bored, and I like to debate. I also have some good advice to offer. We love it here. Story 59. I used to use Reddit to get my daily dose of content, but it has become heavily censored. It feels like just a platform for low-quality posts now. Story 60. To find communities for niche interests and adult content, to read and sometimes contribute to writing prompts, a centralized area where people can help with math for gaming optimizations and explain their reasoning, and to share random memes. Story 61. Information is interesting and sometimes informative, though not always reliable. I love most of the comments. Certainly beats Facebook. Story 62. I have a hard time with videos of people talking to me. It's overwhelming. I would much rather read what I want to know. I can engage as much as I want here. Story 63. Mainly for advice on various topics, so someone would know who I am and provide an honest answer. The cats on Reddit's cat community make me very happy. Story 64. If I have a question about a video game, generally someone on Reddit has already asked a question about it and received an answer. Story 65. I love the different communities and people who have a great sense of humor. I'm always laughing, and it's good for mental health. Story 66. 90% cracking jokes or answering on r/ask old people, and are slash fuck I'm old, and 10% looking up information on different topics. Story 67. My mom was killed. The investigation was chaotic. The therapist I spent money on told me to tap between my thumb and finger when I feel stressed. I ended up here, and I keep reading, trying to forget what happened. Sometimes I feel better. Story 68. I think it's a natural product of my misspent youth on internet forums. Internet forums were huge in the 2000s, and I was part of quite a few of them. I even still have friends I met on various forums. Now that forums are gone, I suppose Reddit filled that gap for me. I like Reddit's AskReddit specifically because there was a time when I was quite addicted to Yahoo Answers. This subreddit is a natural offshoot of Yahoo Answers. Story 69. Mostly niche subreddits for topics I enjoy. Increasingly, I unsubscribed from other subreddits as I lose patience with the content I encounter. Story 70. The anonymity allows me to engage in discussions and ask questions with the general public that I couldn't address elsewhere without being recognized by acquaintances. I also want to express my frustrations about family issues. Story 71. Reddit is my digital flea market. I browse for fun and walk out with a ceramic clown lamp, someone's breakup story, and an argument I wasn't even part of. Story 72. I find sharing my thoughts with random strangers and the resulting conversations thoroughly enjoyable. I appreciate expressing my ideas and questions that I don't often get to discuss with friends or loved ones while also learning something new. Story 73. Because I don't get the same unpleasant feeling from using Twitter. I don't feel like I'm being manipulated to look up to greedy wealthy individuals and hate everyone else due to a poorly executed algorithm. I also appreciate the variety of subjects I can explore and contribute to, as well as the rabbit holes they lead me down. Story 74. Everything I search for, I add Reddit after the question and almost always get an answer. I also use it for adult content. Story 75. There are debates about politics and many other topics. We can talk about games, trading card games, share a laugh, read the news, express frustrations about work, and engage in open conversations. If I wanted to, I could even have a good time. It's an all-in-one platform that isn't a negative space like other options. Story 76. I find that it is an increasingly challenging question every day. It is certainly a revealing example of the current state of mind in America. Story 77. Boredom and distraction are mostly personal issues for me. Occasionally, Reddit has some interesting content. It is a place where my faith in humanity can sometimes diminish, but it can also be restored. I enjoy watching cat videos and videos that demonstrate acts of kindness. They serve as examples that inspire me to show kindness myself. Story 78. I started using it to learn more about the company I was about to work for. Eventually, I began using it to get other people's opinions on topics that interest me. I also enjoy the humor people bring to lighthearted discussions. Story 79. I can gain perspective and learn about other people's experiences outside of the United States. Social media can be misleading, but Reddit offers a more balanced view. I appreciate seeing how news reporting affects the United States and influences our perception. I seek unbiased information to verify its legitimacy and make informed choices. Additionally, I have found support groups and resources focused on mental health helpful, as well as opportunities for personal growth that I cannot find elsewhere. Story 80. When I joined, it was to talk about television shows after the Internet Movie Database boards shut down. Now, I use it for everything. News, alleviating boredom, asking questions, and finding or discussing music, movies, and television. Story 81. There are many interesting people here who share fascinating insights. It is also a great place to practice writing. Story 82. Whenever I think Instagram is rotting my brain, I switch to Reddit, which I find informative and less harmful. Story 83. I enjoy speaking with people from different parts of the world and receive many great movie recommendations. Story 84. Expose excommunication including Killdozer, Vegas Professor, Gavin Long, Christopher Dorner, Amanda Todd, Richard Greener, President Trump, myself, and many other targeted individuals. Story 85. I watch those Reddit confessions and am I the AH on YouTube with game videos in the background. I was curious, so I started using Reddit. Story 86. Communication about any topic is acceptable, which means I can read and maybe even learn something new. Story 87. I read the news here before it breaks in major media outlets, usually by at least a few hours, but often by days or weeks. It's shocking how accurate and informative Reddit can be. Story 88. Originally, I created a Reddit account for NBA-related content and ended up discovering content about some of my favorite TV shows as well. Reddit was something I used for breaks during work, and I grew to find relatable people discussing heavier subjects that I didn't or couldn't talk about in my daily life. Overall, I appreciate the abundance of information available here, along with the anonymity, even though I could probably be tracked if someone wanted to. Story 89. It's less social and more media. I went off Reddit for a few years and realized I didn't get my news from anywhere. It's nice living in ignorance until people start talking about this smoky Pope guy. Story 90. Because there are no famous stars here, we are ordinary people with valuable, humorous, and intriguing thoughts. Story 91. In the 1990s, I used Usenet and loved the discussions there. However, that eventually faded, especially after Deja News was acquired by Google and major internet service providers banned the alt hierarchy. So, I turned to online forums. Unfortunately, many of my favorite forums were taken over by trolls or hostile users, prompting me to seek other alternatives. That's when I discovered Reddit. Essentially, Reddit became my substitute for Usenet. Story 92. I was recovering from spinal surgery and was feeling bored lying in the hospital bed. Somehow, the mysterious algorithms led Reddit to my feed, providing me with something to read and people to interact with. I'm grateful for that, but this summer, my usage will be significantly reduced. Story 93. Because my randomness is too unpredictable for some people in the real world, and I don't always want to socialize in person. Story 94. To kill time just like the chive, but the amount of sex and debauchery on this site is starting to wear thin. Story 95. Because I feel it is one of the best sources of information and opinions on nearly anything. Story 96. Honestly, it is the best source for everything. My use of Google is 50% image search and 50% search on Reddit. Story 97. Fewer people from my country use it, which means less distraction and more individuals with expertise. Additionally, communities are valuable. Story 98. Because the internet has been consolidated into 3 or 4 websites where you can quickly obtain information. Story 99. I use it almost exclusively to satisfy my craving for various types of content. The platform does not disappoint. Story 100. I started using Reddit because it was one of the few places on the internet that was largely text-based, easy to skip the non-text content, and I could browse it on my phone while taking calls at work. That advantage has largely disappeared, and I mostly use it out of habit now. I also don't use it as much as I used to. This site has gotten a lot worse, even considering the standard idea that I'm getting older and it was always bad. I'm just noticing it now. It's not nearly as useful or enjoyable as it used to be. Story 101. I am getting older, feeling bored, and finding myself uninteresting. I have no friends, I am a widower, and I do not have a girlfriend. Are these good enough reasons? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.